Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Get Weird with me, your host, Brittany Barbieri. Today's episode, I'm diving deep into a very interesting case, and I'm also connecting the dots along the way. And the best part about this case is that it mixes faith, fire, supernatural, and the question of the afterlife. So, before I begin, I would like to lay a little bit of a red carpet down, if you will. This event took place in November of 1859 in Italy, behind a door that another sister happened to hear horrible sounds coming from behind. And when she opened that door, what she saw, witnessed, and experienced would change not only her life, but many of the other lives of the nuns within this convent. And by doing so, having this experience and writing it down, they were able to salvage and be a witness to something so incredible. And the best part is that this particular case is known as the Handprint of the Holy Soul. Should you want to look it up, I recommend you do. There are a few websites out there and a couple links. I know some people recently in the last year have shared this account online again. It seems to be circling again. Another reason why I felt it was a perfect time to discuss this particular case. A fun little tidbit and fact about me. When I grew up in a Irish Catholic upbringing, and when I was in my early teenage years, I so badly wanted to become an exorcist. Like, I wanted to be an exorcising a nun or what have you, or a priest. And I remember having that in the back of my head. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go battle demons and I'm going to go do XYZ. So I remember studying up on it. And of course, when I learned more, I realized, oh, so I can't get married. I can't have a family. I don't want that. But it didn't take away from like the research and the deep dive work that I went into and the understanding of human life and the supernatural life and how, it all is very intertwined, way further back than any of us ever really even knew. And the study and the research and to understand what a possession, a demonic possession looks like, and to physically see it on someone's body. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with the case. It was actual original case, but then it was turned into a movie called The Curse of Emily Rose or something like that. But her original case, the original girl behind that case, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, maybe. I think that's the name of it. Regardless. Her name was Annalise Mitchell, was her actual real name, and her real videos are out there. I remember studying that, diving into that case. I wanted to understand why and how somebody so innocent could become so in the terms of the church was so demonically possessed. And her story alone fascinated me to no end, to see her and what she looked in a very short period of time was unbelievable. But the audios and the videos that they captured of her during the exorcisms and the understanding of what they were dealing with, it was something that I would say straight out of a horror movie. So if you're not prepared to watch something like that, I recommend not. I took all the precautions to protect myself and listening to the video and so forth. And I know a lot of people out there are like, yeah, it doesn't matter. But I'm sharing that only because it's a fascinating case. And it really piqued my interest into so much more that we just don't know, or we're too afraid to talk about because we're so afraid what somebody on the internet's going to think. And I can only imagine sharing this case, what the trolls are going to do to me when I post the reel I want to create, showcasing about this particular case. But at the end of the day, I don't care. I made this podcast and I do these stories and I share these stories because they fascinate me. They don't get enough media attention. There's other similar patterned cases that match the one I'm going to share with you guys today, and I will also highlight those cases as well. And again, I don't speak Italian, so I apologize to any Italian listener, to my girlfriend April, who is Italian, like mafia Italian. I'm sorry, April. I'm probably going to butcher some of these names in here. So, like, the name of the town is Falangio. I'll I'll just say Italy because I don't want to mess it up or offend anybody. And I have friends that are Italian and I love them to pieces, and they're going to laugh at me after listening to this audio, but they're also going to think, good job for sharing this. This is a cool story, but maybe. But anyway, I just feel it's a really cool story that mixes, faith and our understanding of the other side or the supernatural, or is it purgatory? Is it something else? Like, I don't know. But that's why I like this story so much, because it is weird. It's weird. And it fits into why I have this podcast. And so I want you to listen with an open mind. I don't want to hear from the trolls. You can just save it. You can sit this one out. And I honestly just want you guys to listen to this and just hear the cool story behind it, but then also listen to connection and patterns. And then at the end of it, I want you to do your own research into this and take a moment to really dive into this on your own. And also there's a couple of different blogs and write-ups on this particular case, which I find really fascinating. But anyway, so I digress. I don't want to dive too far south on this one, but let's get into the story. Again, keep an open mind. It just really fascinated me. And growing up in the way that I grew up, I always was taught to walk by faith and not by sight. So here we are, folks. I'm going to share this story with you, and we are just going to dive into it. And we're going to take the blinders off. We're just going to hear it and see it for what it is. And at the end of it, you either believe or you don't believe. And that's totally up to you. And I'm cool with that. Whatever you decide, it is not for me to tell you what to believe in. I'm just here to be the storyteller and share these incredible encounters with you. And I have my theories. I have my takes. And at the end of the day, we're all theorists until we can actually prove something 100%, right? So it's all about having fun, being open-minded, supporting each other, sharing these incredible stories to bounce ideas and theories off each other, and just really encourage each other to stay open to the possibilities of anything cool, right? Like something that could really just blow our mind open, or the next big discovery, because that to me is super important as we move forward as a whole, as a society, as communities. We shouldn't be de-evolving, we should be evolving. And these are ways to evolve, is to stay open-minded and progressively moving forward with each and every discovery in science, in archaeological discoveries, and everything else on the planet. So if you have a supernatural encounter, don't think you're strange. You're actually part of a very large percentage, and most of that percentage won't talk about it because there's so many people out there that think they know everything, and they bully those people. And so they have bullied them into just staying quiet. And I find that very sad. But if you have a supernatural experience or something that is truly amazing and so cool, and you want to share it, you can always share it with me at Get Weird. You can go to my Instagram account and you can send it to me via email. I would love to hear it. I love these accounts. I thrive on them because I feel it's one step closer to, one, being there for the next person, and two, it allows us to just stay open-minded together and be supportive to one another, because I wasn't there. I didn't experience it. So how dare I tell you, you didn't go through this. So now that I've gone way off track and I've kind of rambled for a minute, which I normally do at the end of my podcasts, I apologize for this. Let's just dive into this one. After I've been rambling for what feels like 20 minutes. But let's dive into it, okay? So I've labeled this one the scorched signature handprint, because it's actually known as the holy handprint, let me see. I have it written down here in my paper. The handprint of the Holy Soul is actually what it is listed as. But on today's journey, we're going back to November 4th in 1859, and it was of Sister Teresa Justa, a well-loved nun. Okay. She was a very devoted nun, and was best known for her devotion and, funny enough, her tiny hands. I know it sounds so weird, but it's going to make sense here very soon. So she passes away suddenly of a stroke, and life at the convent returns to its quiet, peaceful, prayerful routine, except 12 days later, the silence is shattered, in the convent. And so Sister Anna Felicia is walking toward the sacristy, and as she reaches for the handle, she hears something, and it's like a wailing sound, sobs of just absolute agony. So she goes and flings open the door, and expecting to find her sister in distress, or a sister in distress, whether hurt or otherwise, and the room is completely empty to her surprise. So now, if you can imagine, Anna is terrified, mortified, because she knows what she just heard, and she's standing in an empty room and can still kind of hear it echoing. So she yells out, and her quotes was, "Jesus, Mary, what is that?" So now from the empty air, a voice actually answers her back to Sister Anna, and it is the voice of her late sister, Teresa. And she hears her cry out in quotations, "Oh my God, how I suffer." Now, here's where we get a little of the supernatural starting to come in. The room begins to fill with a heavy, dusty smoke, which was written down. And then and in the center of this mist, as you see like all this smoke kind of forming, a figure appears in the center. And according to Sister Anna, it's Sister Teresa. And she doesn't look like the peaceful woman she was when she was buried. She looks burdened. So she walks towards the door where Sister Anna was and shouts, "Behold a proof of the mercy of God." She slams her hand against the wooden door, and there's this hissing sound. Imagine like listening to like searing meat, right? So now imagine that sound on the back of a wooden door. And then she vanishes. So when the other nuns hear all this and they come running and they arrive, they find Sister Anna Felisa just trembling. Felisa. I apologize again for my Italian friends. But it was the door that held all of their gaze, because burnt into the wood was the small handprint, the exact size of Sister Teresa's famously known tiny hands. Now, this isn't just a regular ghost story that people like to share, okay? And this isn't a ghost story for the sisters either. It was a call to action. So they prayed for 3 days straight, okay? They are thinking, our sister is in purgatory and we've got to get her out, because that is what they do. Because in Catholicism, it's purgatory. So they are thinking, we've got to pray her out. So for 3 days straight, they pray. Teresa on the third day appears again. And in this time, they are quoted saying, "In a balloon of light." She was free. She had passed through the fire and now was in the light. And I would assume the light of God. Okay. So we hear this case and people are like, "Oh my God, it's so flashy and made up. This isn't true. Blah, 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 blah." So fine, fair, whatever you want to say. I don't really care. The cool part is that historical patterns begin to kind of connect for me here. Okay. The Museum of Souls comes into my head, because skeptics are going to say it's a hoax or a collective hallucination, whatever you guys want to freaking call it. I don't care. But for me, this isn't just an isolated case. Okay. In fact, if you were to travel to Rome, there is a church of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Okay. In Prati. I'm going to jack that up. So I apologize to all my Italian friends again. But you'll find a place there called, in English, translated English, the Museum of the Holy Souls in Purgatory. Okay. This museum was started by a priest named Father Victor after a fire in 1897 left behind the scorched image of a face on a wall. And he spent years traveling Europe collecting objects of fire. Okay. Now consider the case of Father Panzini in 1731. Okay. We also have this one, which was where the convent of St. Clair, Father Panzini appeared to the Mother Abbess, and he didn't say a word. Instead, he drew this is so cool to me. He drew his finger across a wooden table, carving a deep charred line into the surface. And then he pressed his glowing hand onto a piece of paper burning through several layers of parchment. Now, I sit there and I go, why fire? You know, in all of these accounts, the fire represents what, right? So we could look at it in some maybe, let's look at this in a I don't know. We could look at this in theory, okay? And maybe it's a purifying state. But in theology, it also suggests that the soul is in such a state of longing for the divine that they are on fire for that desire, or with that desire. Okay, so that's theology. So when they touch into our physical world, that spiritual heat manifests as like literal physical combustion, right? But that's theology. That's an idea. in my head of what it could mean. But do we really ever have the answers for half this stuff? No, absolutely not. But again, let's move forward. Actually backwards a little bit. So we see it again in 1637 with the spirit of a man named Joseph. He appeared to his brother asking for prayers to release him from his suffering. To prove he wasn't a demon or just a dream, he touched his brother's wooden bedside table. And guess what the results were? You bet. You just downright guessed it correctly. 5 scorched fingerprint marks, as if a red hot iron had just pressed itself onto that wood. So make that make sense, right? You let that sit in and you're like, what? Right? Like, I don't even know. You could look at the theology of it, but then you could also be like, is there something else that we are missing entirely with these? Like, is it the power of the radiating light of their body that is coming across to us like physical fire, but it's actually their radiating body showcasing the light of their soul? Like, there's so many questions. Okay, let me get back to this. It just drives me crazy because I just love these stories because it makes my brain just go like it just starts computing like mad. So there's a recurring theme here for me, okay, as I digress and I go back and forth on you poor folks listening to me, but this is how my brain works. So welcome into the mind of Brittany Barbieri. I apologize, sister. Like, so for me, there's a recurring theme here in these stories that might seem, I don't know, counterintuitive perhaps, but Sister Teresa called the burn proof of the mercy of God. Those were apparently her quoted words. So how is a scorched door a sign of mercy? You know, in these traditions, the mark is maybe a bridge. Is it a way for the deceased to say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still me. And I need your help because I'm in purgatory. I don't know. In the case of Sister Teresa, you know, she revealed that her suffering was due to small breaches of her vow of poverty, like tiny things she had kept for herself rather than giving to the community. So is there truth to that? Is that a possibility? Did the mark serve 2 purposes perhaps? Did it, you know, in this case, like in the convent, it spurred the living to pray for her soul, and it served as a terrifying warning to the other nuns to take their vows extremely serious. And you know, in a way, it turned Sister Teresa's private struggle into a very public miracle of seeing something like that. So whether you view these as literal supernatural events or as powerful psychological manifestations of grief or religious devotion, perhaps, the physical evidence still remains. And that alone is the coolest part for me. And the door in Italy at this convent, it was taken down and preserved, and the marks in the Rome Museum are still there behind glass centuries later. So these are like little echoes, you know, of the past, but also showcasing echoes of the afterlife, perhaps, for us. So from what I gathered in the research and from what I've gathered within different literature on the Sister Teresa case, the handprint eventually faded from the original wood. So I guess over time it just started to fade. But the story has not faded. So it was written down, documented, preserved. And that reminds us, honestly, that across history, humans have always felt this thinness, I would say, or thinning in the veil between our life and death, or our life and the afterlife, or what lies between us and eternity. And whether it's a handprint on a door in Italy, or a scorched line on a table, okay, or a burnt thumbprint, okay. The reason I say that is because there was that's a whole nother story for another time, but an alleged thumbprint on a prayer book in Germany that was like burnt in. So again, these are stories that tell us that the dead might not be as far away as we think they are. They may actually be very close to us, and sometimes they leave marks to prove it. They leave signs to prove it around us all the time, but we are just too closed-minded and closed off. And I don't blame you for being a little closed off, but we also get into this part where we are taught at a very young age monsters aren't real. These things aren't real. I mean, I not everybody, but in most cases. And then you go to school, and then school continues to just hunker down on that none of this is real stuff, and don't believe any of that. My God, you'll look like an idiot. And I was always the kid that was swimming the opposite direction against all the other fish in the sea. I just always was. My brain never worked the same way. I didn't believe like the human Earth timeline was right. Like I was that kid that was like out in space all the time in my head because I just kept questioning and challenging the ideas that were being told to me that it was fact. And I would then challenge back and say, but how do you know it's fact? And they would be like, well, because this theory. And I'm like, but again, it's a theory. So you've taught me that theories are theories because we need theories to possibly prove something exists, but you don't have 100% certainty that this is real. Well, no, of course not, because we probably never will. Right, exactly. So if I throw something at you to challenge you, then you can't tell me that what I'm theorizing is inaccurate, but your theory is accurate because yours makes a little more sense, but mine actually challenges your brain to open up a little bit further than what you think you're capable of. I think the problem is we don't use enough percentage of our brain, and I think we're getting dumber because of it. We're allowing AI and other technologies to basically guide us and lead us, and we are forgetting to be our own versions of pioneers in today's society. We are supposed to follow the leader without how dare us becoming our own leader. And so in an essence, I want to crack that concrete. I'm tired of being told that I have to live in this concrete box and everything is black and white. I don't like that. I don't agree with it. And I will challenge that till the day I die. I am not one to just take it at face value. I'm not one to have a professor tell me that because this book says it and this archaeologist says it and this scientist says it, it's fact. I'm sorry. I will never do that because every day science is proven wrong. Every day, archaeologists find something new that rewrites human history, that rewrites the planet's history, that rewrites everything we thought we knew in time, space, and otherwise. So, no, if we didn't have those in the past that chose to challenge and go out beyond what we are taught, we probably would still be in the dark ages. We can thank those that were open-minded enough to challenge what was being said to them as this is the way it has to be. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm now challenging you, the listener, to challenge yourself. Expand your brain capacity, your mind. You have a brain that is huge in there, wanting to work, absorb, and understand things beyond. I want you to push your brain to the point to where it feels tired at the end of what you've researched or what you've looked into. I want you to sit in bed at night and wonder why we don't ever see friggin' dinosaur ghosts, but we see people ghosts. I want this to break the barriers in your brain. I want you to truly start remolding the way you think and the way you see the world around you, because there's actually a lot of color when you remove the charcoal city. Okay, so I want you to remove all that charcoal and start looking at it with a little bit more color and watch how vibrant everything around you becomes. We were designed to be just workers, to sit down, shut up, and do our job. But the moment we decide we don't want to do that anymore, we're a problem. We're crazy. We're stupid. We're weird. We're whatever. No. We're the thinkers and the doers and the creative that will continue to push the society to the best of its ability and make changes. So never allow anyone to tell you that you shouldn't think the way you think, or to make you feel bad for questioning things or anything like that. You're allowed to question. You're allowed to have ideas. You're allowed to have thoughts. If it doesn't make sense, you're allowed to challenge others. You're allowed to have your own theories or your ideas. Until things are proven factual, everything is a theory. Everything is an idea. And that is what pushes us forward to the new frontier. So with that, the next time you hear a creak in your hallway or perhaps see a shadow out of the corner of eye, listen, don't just immediately poo-poo it away as a ghost. I want you to look for a signature. Look for something that somebody may have left behind, burned into something, or sketched into something just for you to find, because it was meant for you. And until next time, my amazing and incredible listeners, stay weird.